In the beginning there was a garden full of wonders. Rivers flowed like crystal, winding through grassy fields covered in bright, blooming flowers. Everywhere life was in perfect harmony. Birds filled the skies, singing cheerful songs as they danced through the air. Lions rested peacefully beside lambs. Monkeys swung joyfully from tree to tree, laughing as they played among the branches. Butterflies fluttered like floating jewels. In this paradise lived two people, Adam and Eve. They walked barefoot along soft green paths, smiling as the warm breeze whispered through the trees. They picked sweet fruits of every kind, tasting the endless delights of the garden. They laughed as animals gathered around them, gentle elephants, playful squirrels, curious deer. At the river's edge, they splashed in the cool water, racing the fish and giggling at the ripples. Everywhere they went, beauty followed. There was no fear here, no sadness, just joy, peace, and endless wonder. But not everything was theirs. In the very center of the garden stood a tree, unlike the others. Its fruit glowed softly, like little lanterns swaying in the breeze. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Its beauty was unmatched. Its fragrance drifted through the garden, sweet and tempting. Adam and Eve admired it from afar, but they never touched it. Yet, someone else watched the tree closely. Hidden among the leaves, slithering low through the grass, was a serpent. It watched with clever eyes, waiting patiently. It tried silly tricks to blend in, wrapping itself in leaves, hiding among flowers, even wearing a crown of vines. But its eyes never left the tree, or Eve. One day, as the sun shone bright and golden, Eve wandered near the forbidden tree. The serpent watched eagerly. She gazed at the glowing fruit, mesmerized by its shimmer. The wind seemed to still. The leaves around her swayed gently, as if whispering secrets. She reached out slowly, her hand trembling. Her fingers touched the fruit. Nothing happened. She lifted it from the branch. The serpent grinned. She turned the fruit in her hand, its glow shining brighter than ever. And then she took a bite. At once the garden seemed to hold its breath. Colors shifted. The light grew dimmer. A strange feeling rushed through her. She quickly went to Adam. He looked at the fruit in her hands. Curiosity tugged at him. He took it. He ate. Suddenly everything changed. A great wind rushed through the garden, swirling leaves and petals into the air. The animals gasped in shock. The trees bent under the weight of the moment. Adam and Eve looked at each other and felt something they had never known before. They looked down at themselves, startled. They grabbed the largest leaves they could find, clumsily trying to cover themselves. They stumbled through the garden, hiding behind trees and bushes, their hearts pounding. But no matter where they went, they couldn't hide. The garden had grown quiet. Then, a mighty voice echoed through the trees. It wasn't angry, but it was firm, steady, and impossible to ignore. Adam and Eve froze in place. The voice asked where they were. They stayed still, too afraid to answer. The voice called again. Finally, they stepped out from their hiding place. Their heads hung low, their faces heavy with sadness. The garden watched silently. The truth was clear. They had eaten the forbidden fruit. They had disobeyed. Sadness filled the air. The animals watched silently from the shadows, their playful faces now quiet and still. The garden, once full of laughter, now felt heavy. There was no shouting, no anger, only sorrow. It was time. The beautiful paradise was no longer their home. They had to leave, not because of rage, but because the garden was no longer the place for them. Their mistake had changed everything. Slowly, they turned to face the unknown world ahead. Hand in hand, they walked forward, their steps heavy but steady. The sun began to rise in the distance, bathing the land in golden light. Behind them, the animals gathered at the gates, watching them leave. Some waved with their little paws, others called out with soft cries. But ahead, there was hope. Though they had lost paradise, their story wasn't over. A new beginning was waiting, and even now, their journey had just begun.